Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Global News Review. My name is Ola. I'm the founder of the Money Meet Club, and I'm glad to have you here. Now, if this is your first time, what we basically do in this session is that we review global news and how it affects your pockets. Why is this important? Because it's pretty much your environment. If you, no matter how much you work hard, you thrive, or you attempt to thrive, right? If you're not aware of the fact that it's going to rain, or the clouds are gathering, or the weather's about to change, you will not do the right things to adjust. And so, what we do here is that we just talk about the news generally and how it actually affects your pocket. So, you make adjustments accordingly. Now, today we have quite interesting news. Some interesting news. First of all, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, 9 a.m. GMT plus one, and also follow us on all the socials. Now let's get with the news, right? The first news, we'll start with Nigeria. So we got actually covered Nigeria, Africa, and the global news, right? Um, so the first thing is the tariff hike. We talked about the fact that telcos had been permitted, or there has been an approval of an up to 50% increase in what's it called, in tariffs for on telecoms services, right? So your calls in Nigeria or your data services in Nigeria. Now, what has come out of this is that the NLC, the Nigerian Labour Congress, is fighting against it, and they're saying that no, this must not happen. Now, why are they kicking against it? Because for them, it's more of a question of how much can the average Nigerian take in terms of price increases. But for us, what are our thoughts around this? Like, if you are someone, I mean, most of us right now are highly dependent on data, on phones, right? On making calls to keep in touch with family, to do business. So the question to you is, which one is more important? That you can actually um connect with people when you need to immediately, effectively, and smoothly, and not be frustrated, or you keep the prices low and then you spend more data. Yeah. Have you noticed that whole move? You spend more data, spend more time, are more stressed by something that should be so seamless. Or you have an expensive or important presentation to make over Zoom with some offshore partners and it's not working. Right. So for us as individuals, I mean, what do we think here? The good thing also about it on the side of the government is that they have said it's up to 50%, number one, and then your tariffs should be increased in line with an increase or improvement in your services. So they have given them that task that your services must improve before you can increase these tariffs. For me, I think it's a middle ground. I think it's good because if they're saying that one of the reasons why the services have dwindled because it has actually gotten worse, even from the guys that we thought were reliable before, it has actually gotten worse. So I believe that one of the reasons the reasons they say or they claim for the loss in value, like the fact that the services are not as fabulous, is that um, they're not able to invest more money because the revenue is not making sense, especially with the massive devaluation, right? So this is one of these things where I think as an individual that they should actually do what they need to do. The major thing is, will the quality go up? And because if you can guarantee, sometimes you actually go into the office or go for physical meetings because we do not want to take that risk of internet messing up on us. And that is a real fact. So if you can actually guarantee that the call will be smooth, I think there's a case for it. Now, the second news out of Nigeria is that the federal government approves 4 billion conditional cash transfer for vulnerable households. Now, what is this about and what do we think, right? Now, the way it works generally is that not just Nigeria, when things are tight, when the economy is in a tough situation and some tough decisions need to be made, there genuinely needs to be some provision for those who will be highly impacted and have no shock absorber for it. So if you remember the checks that were sent to households in America, if you have friends or relations in Canada who have told you that when you first land, right, before you get your job, you get a certain amount of money every month from the government just to stabilize before you get your job. And then as you begin to increase your tax bracket, the amount reduces to a point where you don't get anything at all. This is what we are talking about here. Now, I know the average Nigerian is thinking, who really gets this cash? First of all, your prayer is that you're not part of the people that need to get this cash because it is a really tight situation. But I think for us, it is good that these things are happening. The major thing is the level of accountability, how it is disbursed, and who are the people that end up getting these things, right? These payouts, because they're actually necessary. They should be part of the budget. If, for example, you are going to increase taxes on something, and you know that there's some people that will be impacted by it, and you know that these people are vulnerable, you really don't want so many people on the streets, and we can see. And I think it's even a global thing, right? Go to the UK, go to the States, there are a lot more people on the streets, homeless, right? So if we can make provision for vulnerable people, it'll be quite good. Now, why am I highlighting is because I understand as Nigerians, the trust level is really low. And so when we see these things like they're just bringing out money for themselves, yes, there is a chance that that could happen because we've had that happen in time past, right? However, I think we should move past that to actually checking and like holding people accountable to who are the people that are actually getting this thing and are they really getting it. That's the most important thing, because should this funding go? Yes, it should, and it helps people to feed and stuff like that, but who are the people that is going to? That is the most important information. Now, before we go on, I'd like to tell you that we are holding a free webinar on where and how to invest. And basically is for anyone anywhere in the world. The reason why we're having this session is that in my journey from being a securities trader to being a personal finance educator and just helping people with their finances, I realized that the problems are the same everywhere in the world. And what people don't realize is that there's nothing new under the sun. You just need to be told. So if you are in Canada, if you're in the UK, if you're in the US, if you have friends in those jurisdictions, I would want to invite them to this session. Why? Because it will tell you what you can invest in that you can sleep, like you can actually sleep, why those investments are good so you have context to what you are doing, and how to get started. So we'll actually point you out because for a lot of countries around the world, the systems and the structures are the same, right? But people just don't know. And the truth is that if you know how it is set up in Ghana, right, you can almost go to America and ask the same questions and you get the exact information of how it is set up in America or in Canada. So before we go into the exotics, which is where a lot of people like to dance, there are some basic things that you can start with regardless of how much you have, right? So I want to invite you. It's happening next week, Saturday, which is 1st of February, 6 p.m. GMT plus one. You just need to register. The link is in the description. Please come and please invite a friend also. Yeah. Now moving on, let's go on to Africa news. Let me see where that is. Yeah. So Kenya and UAE discuss extending the railway to Uganda and South Sudan. Now, this is me just saying that things are happening. Guys, things are actually happening. The first thing I want to point out is that the UAE is gradually positioning themselves as a world power, and they're extending their influence beyond their country. There was a time when Dubai was really bare, empty, blah, blah, blah. Abu Dhabi was just quiet and chilled and stuff. But what we see now is that the tide is changing. They are moving away from being introverted, if that's the word, to actually extending their economic power to other countries. And it's something that we should look out for because somehow or the other, especially with this whole make America great, fighting everyone, tariffs and stuff, somehow or the other, you might find in a couple of years down the line, the whole America thing might fade. Most likely will fade, especially if they take out the birth citizenship option, and all those things that have been what attracted people to America. Once we take out those and there is so much tariff and fight everywhere, you would naturally see that things will change over time. So let's be on the lookout for it and let's be aware, right? Things are changing. That's the first thing. Then for this whole real thing, right? I think this is literally the making of Africa as we think it should be. When I say the making of Africa as we think it should be, like we all say Africa should be great, Africa should be this, Africa should be that, right? This is the making of it. Why do I say that? Because if you've watched the men who built America, what happened? There was oil, there was this. Then there's a point where they had to start building rail to connect, Like, does that sound familiar? And even in developed countries, right, what you find is that apart from things that move things en masse, that support trade en masse, is rail and shipping. So if you're in a landlocked country, meaning that a country doesn't have water around it, the fastest thing to move bulk goods around is actually rail. So if you say that you are in Kenya and okay, there's some Indian Ocean around there somewhere, but to connect East Africa, as you have the shipping lines, you need rail. And so these things that just look like random news, guys, there are opportunities that will be built up on top of it. What do I mean? It becomes cheaper, it becomes faster to move things across countries, so trade can be faster. It becomes cheaper and faster to move across countries, so visiting, tourism, blah blah blah. And they just need to plot the graph of where this rail line is going to pass, and it's a deal, right? And you now find over time, oh, that there's a good ecosystem to visit. The way you do Schengen countries, does it sound familiar? So my hope and prayer is that West Africa would wake up, aka Nigeria, will wake up, because this road thing that we're doing doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. Yeah. But I mean, what for me, what this tells me is that if you're looking for where places to invest, East Africa seems to be on a good trajectory right now. So you invest when it has not yet blown, when it's on the way to blowing. That's how you cash out. Yeah. Not when it's obvious. That is a trick there. Then the next news is actually also about Kenya and the fact that they're going to start publishing core inflation data to boost targeting, right? What does that mean? So a lot of people see inflation information and just and they just look at it like, and I mean, I dare say I could mention it here that I attended the what's it called, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group macroeconomic outlook for Nigeria um over the week, during the week. And one of the things that they were talking about were all this core data, what's economic data, and what it means in real life. Whilst we might look with a shrug and say they'll say inflation is coming down, but prices are not coming down, right? And I can explain that. Follow me and see. I'll explain why that can happen so that you understand what is really happening, right? But the fact is this data is what is used to make decisions. So the more you can have data about the country in terms of what are the real drivers of inflation, what are the real things that are making prices go up, what are the sectors that are key to this economy, and how are prices either stable or unstable, and what are the drivers. That kind of information, guys, is very important. It's very, very important for decision makers, very important for policy makers, and it's also very important for businesses. Because one of the things the central bank governor was in the session that I was in, and he highlighted the need for engagement, and it is a fact all over the world. African businesses do not engage with their leaders on a policy level. We only engage when we are angry, and that's something that needs to change. I read it to you. We only engage when we are angry. We don't have, okay, this is this data. Let's use it and let's make decisions based on it. We think that this is what will benefit us, right? That kind of thing, that kind of conversation. And I encourage you as a business leader to hang on with my channel, ask your questions. You see something, see some economic data. What does this mean for us? I am happy to explain because I don't know which one people need and people don't need, right? And I'm building over time. But these things actually impact you, actually impact you. It's not just textbook. Trust me. It's almost like they're making shit over your head. So a lot of businesses need to start plugging in, need to have associations, need to have platforms to engage. Very, very important. Let's get back to news before I start preaching. And don't forget our session. I already talked about it. Let me pop it up again while I bring up the final news. So yes, out of America, like we are in a an economic war situation. You know the way in previous time, let me not use examples because it can be very sensitive. But one country will say that, oh, they're threatening to launch this against another country and blah 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 blah. What we have now is that we're not launching rockets. We're launching tariffs across borders, right? Funny but not funny. But what I want to highlight here, because it has been in the news a lot, Trump is President, you knew President Trump. The President Trump that has come in, not the new President Trump. He is saying that he's going to create tariffs on China, US, China, Mexico, and Canada. Now, the fact is this, you can't live in isolation. You can't say that they would increase tariffs on the country and not expect a retaliation. That's the first thing. So if you check it out, as much as America, as much as America is importing some goods from Canada, which are the things that they can put those tariffs on, America is also exporting goods to Canada, which Canada can put tariffs on also. So the Canadian Prime Minister is saying that, guy, don't think that you're the only one that can put tariffs. Everybody's going to suffer here, so we all need to calm down, right? That's the first thing. Now, what does this mean for the person in Canada? First of all, we can already see because the exchange rate, the Canadian dollar to the US dollar, has gone quite bad. Like the same way Nigerians or Africans will say that, oh, it was 100 Kenyan shillings to a dollar before, now it's like 120, right? That or 130 or 140. That's what's happening in Canada right now. That's even the first thing. And what impact? And so beyond the tariffs, right? If you are importing goods from America, it's going to be more expensive, number one. Then now add the 25% on top. For the individuals in Canada, inflation is going to be a major risk this year. That's one. Now, what that means is that there is a lower chance of them cutting rates further on things like your credit card rates, your mortgage rates, blah, blah, blah. There's a lower chance of that happening. That is for the real guy on the streets. Now, for the person who runs the business of importing, right? It's one of those things where it's not the government that imports from the US. It's individuals running businesses that, okay, they import from the US to Canada and then they would distribute locally and sell. Now, for that person, the fact is this, it might be tough at the start, but what is going to happen over time? Because it's just about numbers, right? Numbers and a certain quality. The moment they can find another country that will sell that same thing to them without the additional tariffs, and that country might also be suffering from a devaluation against the dollar, so it might be cheaper to trade with that country, they would switch. And so, what you might find over time, as much as this looks like it's not like a great thing, what you might find over time for the business is that they begin to switch their trade partners. And so you would go from, oh, America is one of the major trade partners with Canada, to maybe Australia. But it's just, the thing is also, there's also that transport thing. America is so close, shipping, blah, 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 turnaround time. But you see, when those costs pile up so much that it ceases to make sense, you will now start establishing, you will now find that they will be forced to start establishing new trade partners. Now, this is what we are seeing in Africa, where you see African governments who would normally tilt towards the Western nations are now signing up for BRICS. Nigeria also signed in, established themselves as a partner in BRICS last week, right? And that is when these things, because it's obvious that you can't depend on these people because they will slam you. So keep your options open. In other words, as a business person, you're not always stuck. What this all this is saying is that it's giving room for new trade partners, and you have to be open. And you might end up finding that they might end up going to China because they're all in the same situation, things like that. But it's not always but for you as an individual, be aware inflation is probably going to be a major conversation, and the impact on interest rates is going to be gangster in this year, most likely, from all that we can see. So all those expectations around real estate price surges, all those things may not happen as we expect it to, right? And the final news is just gist. At this point, I just take it as gist, right? So there's a meme coin that was released on day one. And this thing, I started my career as a trader and I just laughed. The rule when you want to do things like this is that you jump out when ovation is loudest. Like, you don't wait until and you believe that it's going to go. What was the fundamental of that coin? Now, this thing, I probably need to have a full blown conversation around the whole coins, the impact on the financial system, the impact on financial stability, and the fact that we're just like, it's trading, it's pure trading. There's no fundamental or stability around it. It's pure trading. And so to go up and to go down because there's nothing holding on to it. It's pump and dump, guys. You have to understand so that when you are going in, you can't sit down and start dreaming of how your $100 is going to become 1,000 or $5,000, and let's just keep watching it. What is holding to what is the economic fundamental? What is holding it up, guys? Think about it. Right? So it is important that while we are excited about it and jumping on these trends, let's also understand what is happening. I probably need to do a proper, like, expensive video explaining what it is, what's happened, why you should not be, like, just explaining it, right? But just know, now when you see things like that, it's straight, jump in and jump out, cash out quickly. Yeah, and on this note, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to register. Link is in bio. You can also scan the barcode there and it will connect you to register, to direct you to register. And don't forget, you can't outsource your health and your finances. You always have to engage. Have a beautiful week ahead. Oh, another thing to announce is that we started our actual YouTube education videos, and we released the first one for the year, and we're going to keep at it. And it is titled Where and How to Invest. So I'll probably link the video after this so you can see it, right? Thank you so much, guys. Bye.